Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. This is the version 8.0 release preview. I'm Sean Palis with ProSymmetry. Of course, I'm joined with Matt Baker as well as Manny Karana. So we'll be sharing today's duties, walking through version 8.0. Really excited for this release. There is a ton of stuff here, so we're probably going to use up just about every minute of the time we've booked. So let's get started and we'll jump into things. Of course, as always, the release notes will be available on the support site. So normally this would be handled by customer success. I'm taking that responsibility today. So how to get access? Of course, you reach out to your customer success manager to get that scheduled. Version 8.0 will be available to those with premium support next week. Of course, reach out to the appropriate customer success manager to get that scheduled. And again, if you have any questions after today's webinar, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to your customer success manager. Of course, our email is on the cover here. If you want to reach out to me, to Matt, to Manny, we're happy to do that as well. And as always, there's no cost to upgrade, and release notes are going to be available in the Tempus Help Center. This is what today's agenda is going to look like. We're actually going to cover a few other things besides the release itself. A few of them actually around policies, around data retention. So we needed to bring up a few things there. So the first thing we'll cover is a quick policy update on audit log data retention. We're then going to move on to discuss one of the really important and really exciting new features in 8.0, which is the Microsoft Teams integration. I'm going to cover that, and we'll also discuss briefly a policy around those alerts. And then I'll hand things over to Matt, who's going to go through the full Tempus release overview. And then Manny will wrap things up by covering another very exciting feature that's part of 8.0, which is our Atlassian Jira plugin. So the ability to send data directly to Tempus from Jira. So we'll cover all of that in today's session. So a quick update on our audit log data retention policy. Some of you have already been through this with us and have been briefed. This is really for the broader community. So as you can imagine, the data store around and data retention around Tempus audit logs has been growing substantially. And what we've done across the board and we'll be doing here is changing the audit log retention through the UI to 6 months. So that will be the standard going forward. What that means is your audit log data are not lost. What happens is they are offloaded behind the scenes to a separate storage area. So they are retained beyond 6 months, but through the user interface, you'll be able to query up to 6 months in the past. If you did need to access those audit logs older than 6 months, you would simply submit a request to us, and we would work through that process. Of course, we're working on other options to make it allow you to query much farther back in the future through the UI, but for the time being, we will switch to this 6-month audit log data retention policy. Okay. Now, moving on to more exciting things. Again, a critical feature we've added in 8.0 is around communications and collaboration, specifically integration with Microsoft Teams. We have plans to grow this pretty substantially, but what this will allow you to do is subscribe to changes on projects, subscribe to timesheet updates, scribe mentions, as well as resource request workflow actions to receive notifications inside of Teams when those changes take place, and be able to move back and forth between Teams and Tempus as you see fit. Now, we'll cover this in slides today, but we will have a separate webinar for both the Teams integration and the Jira plugin functionality. We'll do those separately because they are a bit more involved and there's some setup steps, all very simple to do. But again, we do want to cover all of that on today's call. So we'll do a few things through screen captures before we get into the core of the release notes. Before we get into discussing the Teams alerts in more detail, one thing to be aware of is that with version 8.0, we will not limit or throttle the number of Microsoft Teams alerts that are generated in your environment. But in starting in version 8.1, we will implement a threshold. So you can think of it like an early release candidate where, again, you'll have access to implement the Teams alerts without limits, but we will impose a limit on that number. We're working closely with Microsoft to try to keep that as high as possible, meaning as close to unlimited as possible, but it's likely that, again, a threshold will be implemented. So we wanted to make everyone aware of that out of the gate. Now, in terms of the Teams or Tempus Teams bot, this will be available to you through the Teams app catalog. You may have to work with your IT administrators in order to make it available to you, depending upon how your O365 is managed and configured. However, once it is added to your organization's app catalog, you'll be able to use the Tempus resource bot in Teams, and there'll be some basic actions here that let you set up your connection. So you'll see a few of those when you start typing in the chat window, and it will essentially ask, do you wish to connect to Tempus Resource? When you select Connect, you're going to get a pop-up in Teams where you would paste in your Tempus URL. So that's your full Tempus URL, including the /SG, and you would then select Connect. Once that's done, you'll receive notification, again, in Teams that you've successfully connected. And at that point, you can then begin configuring your subscriptions. This is another new feature. Matt is going to cover this in great detail, but we have a new feature where each user with rights can subscribe to different actions that are taking place inside of Tempus and subscribe to changes that are important to them. You'll notice you can subscribe to project-oriented changes, scribe mentions, created actions, deleted, as well as those around timesheets and resource requests. We went all out here, at least on the initial stage of the configuration, to let you really over-subscribe to a certain extent, and you'll find options here as well to unsubscribe where necessary. But again, you can now receive alerts through Teams using any of these different configurable subscription options. Remember, you can also configure Teams to auto-relay these to your email. So this does give you additional email-based options as well, but that's handled really through Teams. All right, and again, Matt's going to cover the subscription options in greater detail. With your Teams subscription in place and the Tempus Team Bot configured, you will start receiving in near real time these notifications. This being V1, you're going to get who made the change, what is the change, what was the object that was changed, with links that will then take you directly back to that specific screen inside of Tempus. And you'll notice I have two screen captures I took from this morning. We're already using it internally. You can see one where there was a mention on a particular project, as well as one where the administrator updated the financials on a project inside of Tempus, and I've subscribed to that through Teams. So really excited to introduce this collaboration and communications feature. There's lots more planned, but this is already a very capable release with a ton of additional functionality. So looking forward to getting this deployed out to the community. So with that being said, before we jump into that piece, Matt, I'm going to hand things over to you. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sean, for going through the Teams notification. Now we're going to be moving on to some of the additional functionality and new features within the version 8.0 for Tempus, and kind of piggyback off of what Sean was going through and the new subscription options within Tempus. We're going to be starting off today going through how to set up the subscriptions and what sort of options you have within there. So within version 8.0, you will have a new section in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So if you select on your name up here in the top right, you should see the subscription options, which is going to allow you to manage the subscriptions associated to your account. So just like Sean was showing you with the Teams options, you also will have an in-app option to kind of configure what essentially what you're kind of waiting for happen and how you should be notified within the system. So on the top right, to kind of designate what subscriptions you're looking at, we have the Tempus icon, which is going to be showing us the in-app notifications. And then you also have your Teams notifications within here as well. So we've broken this down into several different pieces to kind of go through the different areas where subscriptions are allowed. And to start things out, we're going to be looking at this project area. And we've split the screen into two areas. One is based off of just kind of overall projects, and those are going to be waiting for instances where projects are created, as well as scribe mentions within those areas. So you'll be able to enable or disable those particular options within your account by just going here. We see the all projects option. We can go ahead and edit that and say, oh, I want to wait, and I want to be able to essentially get notified whenever a project is created. And so now within the system, whenever someone creates a project, we should get an in-app notification showing us that that project has been created. To kind of work with some of the in-app notifications that you will be receiving, you do have this bell icon. This was introduced in the previous version for some of your scribe mentions. However, now your other subscriptions will be notified within here as well. So it's going to say who essentially made that change, what project that was associated to in this case, and you can navigate directly to those projects and directly to those screens where those changes were made by working with your notifications. So outside of that, you also have your scribe mentions for all projects. So that's going to be governed at an overall level for your projects. But then you can get a little bit more granular with the specifics of your projects as well. So down below, we have this area, which is going to be showing you the projects that you've kind of subscribed to, and you're waiting for changes based off of several different aspects within the project. And the work within the screen is very simple. Right up here at the top, we have add projects. This is going to show you the inventory of projects that the account has access to. And you can go ahead and say, okay, well, I want to maybe add Apollo phase 14 and Barcelona phase 13. I want to be waiting for those. And then I care about seeing maybe the attribute changes, but not so much the allocation changes. We can go ahead, disable that for one or many of the projects that you've added, and you'll be able to cater kind of your subscription needs based off of the different areas within a project. If you ever wish to unsubscribe from many of those areas, relatively straightforward. All you have to do is go over here on the right-hand side. You'll see this kind of crossed out eye icon. And this is just going to unsubscribe you from that particular project. Make sure you're not receiving notifications from those no more. And so you'll additionally have subscription options on the timesheeting as well as resource request side of things. So timesheeting will be a very important one where you'll be able to essentially track if your timesheet has been approved, rejected, as well as give notifications on if a particular timesheet was not submitted after a specific duration of time, as well as the timesheet manager. You can see when someone has submitted a timesheet, when someone has retracted, or someone of your users has not submitted a timesheet over a given period of time. So we'll go a little bit more into the timesheeting subscriptions here in a little bit, but to manage those and make sure that you're receiving notification based off of those criteria, that would be managed directly within the subscription screen. And then last but not least, we also have the resource request. It's going to look somewhat similar to the timesheets where you can essentially track notifications based off of different statuses of your resource request within Tempus. So it's going to be broken up by the resource request or the submitter, and you'll be tracking the different statuses of your requests, as well as you have the ability to receive notifications based off of the essentially the resource manager whenever someone submits a resource request or delegates a resource request to you. So very cool stuff, very awesome notifications and ways to manage that. Like Sean was speaking of a little bit earlier, we do also have the team side of things. And so it's going to be the exact same screen when working with here. But the one difference you will notice is you can just copy all of your in-app notifications directly from into the Teams side of things. So let's say, for example, you want to get started with your in-app notifications, make sure that you have those set up, and then your organization decides to move to Teams as well. If you want to just very quickly copy over those options, all you have to do is hit copy subscriptions from in-app, and it will mirror exactly what you had within that previous screen. It's a very nice area, especially when you're working with the subscriptions. We do have a couple administrative settings that will help you configure and make sure your users are only using subscriptions that they should have access to. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the home page and head to admin settings and go down to general settings. And you can see there's a couple new tabs, but one of the ones that we have existing is this miscellaneous, and you will find two new options underneath here. So we've added a subscription section within the miscellaneous tab. And the first thing it's going to option we have is allow notification types. And what that is going to do is at a overall system level, determine what notification types are allowed. So let's say, for example, you only want to allow your Teams notification or the in-app notifications initially, and you want to wait on the Teams until you have more information, get that configured to make sure your users aren't jumping the gun and starting to go through and assign those when they shouldn't be. You can go ahead and just disable that with entirely within the system, so they won't even see that functionality, and vice versa. Maybe you want to focus more on the Teams side of things and not as much on the in-app. You can go ahead and disable that as well. And then additionally, we've also allowed you to kind of specify how long notifications should be kept within the system. So this is going to be more so on the side of the in-app notifications, where you can keep these notifications live and you can kind of look through them for the next X amount of days. And then after that time has elapsed, it would essentially remove that notification within the system. So those are some of the options with the notifications, and we have added one more kind of aspect to that, and that is within the project level. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate back to the home screen and just go to project management. And so you can also subscribe to your projects in an individual level directly by directly navigating to those projects. So let's say, for example, we wanted to subscribe to Nautilus Phase 8. We can go ahead and open that up, and you will see this new eye icon in the top right-hand corner of all your projects, as long as you have subscriptions enabled within your system. And what you can do is you can select on that, and you can see if you're subscribed to it or not. If you want to then subscribe from here instead of the other screen, you can absolutely do so by just selecting either the Tempus icon for your in-app notifications or the Teams, the Microsoft Teams icon to subscribe to the Teams option. Then all you have to do is hit update, and that will subscribe you to the project. You also have some visual indicators on the project management screen. So you can see I did just subscribe to the Nautilus Phase 8 project, and you can see that I am subscribed there. Within the project name area, you will see this kind of eye icon. If you hover over it, it's just going to let you know that you have subscribed within there. So that is kind of the gist of the subscription options within Tempus. Very core functionality, going to be very useful for tracking some of those updates, especially for your end users, and help kind of that communication aspect within the tool. The next area that we're going to be covering today is just the project management. And what you've noticed probably already is the screen does look a little bit different than it has before. So we have revamped both the project management and resource management side of things within Tempus with a new grid. So it's going to look a little bit different, as well as it comes with some additional pieces of functionality. And so one of the pieces of functionality within here that we've heard time and time again, and we've heard that feedback and implemented within here, is just the ability to kind of add more and more attributes and those columns within the grid and allow you to kind of see them in that overall view without kind of scrunching the columns together. So now you will see this kind of horizontal scroll bar where we have more than enough attributes within here. Typically that they may shrink that or may be difficult to see. Now we've added this option so it's more dynamic, where you can keep the same kind of column width, but then just scroll over to see the particular columns that you're looking to view. Additionally, from within there, we've also added some options for filtering this information. So right here, and this will become a little bit more important. You'll see some more new functionality here in a bit for your templating side of things. But if you want to filter your projects based off of regular projects, workflow projects, or template projects, you can do so within this new filter option. Additionally, we have added the same grouping that we previously had. However, we do limit this to 5 projects now, so or 5 project attributes. Before we kind of allowed users to determine as many groupings as they wanted. We have changed that to only be 5 in this case within this version. Additionally, before, when you'd add columns in here and you wanted to move them around, you would have to go to your columns and then essentially move the ordering within here. We have changed that to be a little bit more user-friendly. And so instead of this, you can go through and just click and drag the columns into the new position and move the columns that way. So a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more intuitive to change the columns than it previously was set before. So I can move current phase over to the right. I want to prioritize estimated total cost, so I can move this all the way to the left. One thing you will notice though is the name column is frozen here on the left-hand side of the screen. So you won't be able to change the position of the name column anymore. It will be in the leftmost column within the project management, and very similarly in the resource management grid as well. So a couple changes as well that we will see if we navigate into a project. And first, that is going to be if we open up a project, let's say Barracuda Phase 1 or Phase 9 in this case, I'm going to go to the the Attributes tab here. One thing we did add is the ability to see the ID up here in the top. So previously this wasn't being displayed whatsoever when viewing the project information, the project attributes outside of the URL bar. So we did add just the ability to see that information within the project, and you'll see similarly on the resource side of things as well. Additionally, we have made a small update to multi-selection and selection fields within Tempus. So we've just added some searching capabilities that easily identify skills or whatever selection values we have defined. What we've noticed is those drop-down lists can get pretty large over time and a large quantity of those selection values. So to assist with being able to find those values, we've added the search bar. And so let's say we're just looking for HTML5. We can search for that and easily update it. Not really showcasing the functionality in this case, since there's only 5 values, but you can imagine if there's 50, 100, 250 values in there, scrolling through to find those values could take a lot of time. So we've added that search capability to help alleviate that potential risk there or inconvenience for the user. Outside of that, we've added another filter option within the allocations page. So this is a relatively small update, but very important one. And that's just giving the user the ability to search for resources or tasks within the project or the single project allocation screen. So like similar to the selection side of things, projects can become large. You can have hundreds or thousands of resources assigned to an individual project, and then kind of finding that resource can sometimes be a little bit difficult. So we have added that filtering capability within the screen to kind of filter out your resources or tasks based off of what you're kind of grouping by. So in this case, let's say I wanted to look for Larry, and I just want to isolate Larry. I can go ahead, just type in his name, and then it'll filter based off of the name of the resource. If you're looking to go from the other side around, let's say you wanted to group by your tasks, we can go ahead and just change our group by, see our different tasks, and let's say I want to see only my determine release terms task. I can type that out. There we go. And it's going to show that particular task as well as the resources assigned within there. So something that's drastic should help the end users, especially identify the resources or tasks that they're working with, and give it a little bit more user-friendly approach when working within the single project allocation view. So one more thing that we've changed on the project management side within this view particularly, or more so on the resource cross-project allocation screen within project, is we have added some filtering capabilities in CPA. So we're going to cover this a little bit more when we go through the resource side of things, but I just want to show that we have added it to the cross-project allocation screen as well. So if I wanted to see the cross-project allocation screen of Julian Allen in this case, we can go ahead and just hit cross-project allocation. And what you will notice is we do have a start and end date within here now. So this isn't controlling by any means the capacity, duration of the resource. This is just going to help filter the view down below and essentially say, well, I want to isolate maybe just the allocation for 2022 instead of the entire time frame of the project. We can go ahead and apply that filter, and we can do the end date and start date in this case just to show 2022, and you can see that the time frame has shifted to only show 2022 information, as well as what it will do is it will remove projects that are not allocated whatsoever during that time frame. So if that resource is not working on that project in 2022, but maybe they're working on it in 2021 or 2023, we will essentially remove it from the view to help consolidate the information and make it very apparent what that resource is working on during that given time frame. So that's the cross-project allocation update. You'll see that a little bit more on the cross-project allocation screen within resource once we get to that area. But the next area I wanted to cover is a very important one, and this is going to be more so on the snapshotting side of things. So I'm going to head over here to the snapshot area of Tempus of the project. So I'll go to my snapshots. And so we've had snapshots within Tempus for quite a while now. It's a great way to help capture your information at a point in time, and then be able to do that analysis and review based off of what previously was in Tempus and what exists within Tempus now. But one of the constant pieces of feedback that we have gotten is it would be a great way to essentially say we have a snapshot of this information, we've made the updates, we compare, and we want to go back to the previous snapshot. We would like to be able to essentially revert the data back. So we have added that functionality within version 8.0. So for each one of your snapshots, as long as you have the permissions to do so, of course, you will be able to restore your information from a snapshot. So we can take snapshot 1 here, for example. Let's go ahead and open it up. We can go ahead and open it. We can see our attribute information, our allocations, and this could be a little bit different from what I currently have within Tempus. So we have all that information. The snapshot was taken months ago. I'm just going to go ahead and quit this and go back to my snapshots. Now you'll have an option over here on the right to essentially restore from your given snapshot. So this will be associated to any of the snapshots that you have created. And if you'd like to restore, you can go ahead and select on this option. And then we'll also give you the option to restore from particular areas. So it's not going to be like an all or nothing. You can actually say, well, I like maybe the attributes at this given point in time, but the planned allocation and planned demand are something I want to keep. That is something that currently is correct. It's just the attribution is incorrect. You can always decide to essentially say, I'm going to restore just my attributes and then leave everything else the same. So you do have that granularity and that modular effect where you can specify what particular areas that you want to restore. Or you can choose to restore everything based off the snapshot if you want, and just use this option here to select everything. From there, what you can do is then hit restore, and you get one more confirmation message saying you're going to be restoring and overwriting all the existing information based off of these given areas, and it's going to show you the given areas that you've selected within here. So in this case, I've selected everything, so it's going to essentially overwrite all of my existing information with the information that resides within that snapshot. From there, you can decide to hit restore, and that's going to overwrite that information, or you can cancel and essentially keep the project as it exists. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and hit restore. It's going to update my project. And so now if I go to my allocation side of things, we should see that updated to be what it previously was. I know, for example, the date of the project may have changed, or any of the allocations, some of the attribution that I've recently updated essentially will change, and we don't have that information anymore. So it's essentially going to copy what you have within that snapshot and overwrite it into the existing project. So very nice capability, a way to essentially reconcile information that needs to be maybe overturned and rolled back based off of any of these snapshots that you have within your system. And I do want to iterate that this information is going to be governed by particular permissions in the system. So this may be more so an administrative action to be able to restore and take those snapshots. So I do want to just briefly cover where you can kind of set that permission up, just because it's could be a very impactful piece of functionality, and just to ensure that you're not potentially giving to users that don't have access to it. So if we head here to admin settings and to role management, we should have a project role within here, and I will find it called restore from snapshot. So give me 1 second here, and there we go. And you can see we have added this restore snapshot option. So out of the box, if you're using any of our out of the box permissions, managers as well as editors will have the capability to do so, but your viewers will not, as well as you'll have the ability for any of your custom permissions to allow access to that. So this is also dependent on the ability to access snapshots over here. So you will have to have the ability to access snapshots and edit those to be able to restore from them as well. Okay, so I'm gonna head back to project management. And one small feature before we move on to templates that we've added within here is just a quick update to the Sheets side of things. So if we head here to Sheets, and let's go ahead and I can check it out. We've added the ability, and I'll just create a couple rows, to essentially just delete through right click. So we can click on a cell and you have the delete option. So very useful, very nice functionality to have, but very quick to go through and show. So it's just adding that delete option if you are using sheets, so you don't have to go to the row and delete the bottom rows and use the kind of options above to delete it. You can just right click and delete the highlighted rows that you have within here if you're looking to delete those rows. Okay, and so then one of the last pieces of functionality that we have added on the project side of things, or particularly on the project side of things, is the ability to create and import projects through templates. So in the past, we've had the cloning capability where you essentially could clone an existing project, and essentially you could specify particular areas that you wanted to clone, but essentially it would just make a complete copy of a given project and create a new project in this case. So we have recommended in the past, if you're looking to create templates, you can create a template as a project, and then you can clone from that to kind of create that baseline within there. With that functionality being asked for so much, we've added the ability to actually just create templated projects, which are going to be separate entities than your existing projects, as well as you'll be able to import those particular templates into your existing projects or create new projects based off those templates as well. So to start things out, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my project area, and to view any of your existing templates, what you can do is you will have this filter option right here showing your templates. I have a filter on, so I'll remove that to show my templated projects. So this is how you can view your existing templates within Tempus. But to create a template, it'll be relatively straightforward. All you have to do is go to one of your existing projects and essentially create a template based off of that. So I'm going to go back to my project view. So I'm going to remove this filter. I'm going to apply my additional filter that I was working with before. Okay, and then I'm going to work with maybe Quicksilver Phase 7. So let's say, for an example, Quicksilver Phase 7 is a very generic type of project that we see time and time again throughout our organization. Very similar to many of our other projects, and we essentially say this is a good template or a good baseline for a project of this particular type, and we're going to want to start maybe building upon that later on, but at the start it's going to look like Quicksilver Phase 7. What we can do is you will see an option to create template, which is essentially going to create a template based off of the information that is currently assigned. So that's going to include all the information. That's going to include your attributes, your allocations, milestones, schedule. Any of that information that is associated to that given project would essentially be assigned to that template. So I'm just going to say we click create template. We have to specify a name, so I'll just name this Quicksilver template so I can remember the name, because I can be forgetful at times. I'll name it Quicksilver template. Go ahead and create that template. And from there, we can really see that nothing really has happened. But what we have done behind the scenes is we've created a new template project. So I'm going to head back one page. And once more, I'm going to go ahead and select this option, go to my templates, and now we will see that Quicksilver template. We can see that all the attribution that was assigned to it mirrors that of the Quicksilver project, as well as we can open it, and it's going to look exactly like a project would look. So you have, you can see the save buttons a little bit different. We have the update template just to note that it is a template, as well as we have the same tabs for the most part of this particular template as well. So we have our attributes, allocation, your build team, financials, milestone, schedule, very similar to an existing project. One thing just to note, just so you're aware, is this information that is assigned. So let's say we go to allocation, we see around 22,000 hours of allocation. This does not flow into reporting, your what if, your roadmaps, any of the kind of analytics side of things or ways that you would work and want to assign and work with a project. Your templates will not be associated to that information whatsoever. This is here as a placeholder to kind of mirror what that potential project may look like. And then you would add it to your existing projects, and then you'd see it kind of start flowing within there. So just want to let everyone know and just make sure it's clear that this information is not flowing into those other screens where you're updating allocation or reviewing the allocation that is assigned. This is going to be completely separate and is represented as a separate entity. But with that being said, once you have your template essentially created. You can make updates as time goes on. You can make updates to the template's allocation or attributes, but then when you're looking to assign it, there will be two options you can use. So if I head back one screen back to the project management, and I'm going to remove this filter option here, you'll have two options to kind of work with your templates. First is you can create a project based off an existing template. So if we go over here to create project, down below, we have a lot of options. Now we have a regular project. You can create projects based off of workflows if you have them assigned. But you'll also, if we scroll down, see at the bottom, different options to create projects based off your existing templates. So you can see I have access to all these template projects down below, but I'm going to go ahead and work with my Quicksilver template. And once you select from there, you'll actually have options to base and choose what sort of information you want to import onto this project. So this is also going to be very specific and granular and allow you to pick and choose what sort of aspects that you want to bring into the project and which aspects that you may not want to bring onto the project. And that may be more important or less important on the creation of the project, but what you'll see here in a minute, when we're importing onto our existing projects, you'll be able to really specify what information you're trying to bring over. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. I'll just name this Quicksilver Matt. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to import all this information. So I'm going to go ahead and create. It's going to navigate me to that newly created project. And as you can see, all the information that was previously selected for this given project is now going to be displayed. So we should see a mirror of the attribution, the security group. We should also see the allocation, attributes and allocation be essentially the same. The financials, milestone, any of that information I chose to import over should essentially mirror what has been assigned within that templated project. So that's the first way that you can work with your templates. You can just create a new project based off that existing template. But there is also the scenario where you've been working with your existing project and you want to essentially, you've created it, but you want to maybe, let's say, import the allocation from a template. So you do have the option just to import specific areas as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go back one screen and I want to work with an existing or a different project. Let's say Canary Phase 3. We're looking at this project. We've done the initiation phase. We've filled out some of the attribution. We have understanding of who's going to be essentially who's going to be managing the project. We have a baseline of the schedule, and then we're looking at it and we say, this is, all this information is really good, but we need to fill out the allocation and do a rough idea of what this looks like. And, the scheduling and what that would look like is essentially mirrors that of Quicksilver template. So instead of saying, okay, you have to copy that information over or create a new project, what we allow you to do is just import specific areas of information from those given projects or from a given template and directly into the project. So let's say we wanted to import some of the allocation side of our Quicksilver template. What we can do is, as long as you have the access to do so, we'll see this import from template option right here. When you do that, you can go ahead and choose the template you wish to import from. So let's say we scroll down and we want to import from our Quicksilver template. From there, you can then choose what information you want to import over. So let's say we really just wanted to bring over the planned allocation from that given project and bring it directly into Canary Phase 3. We can go ahead and just say apply. It's going to give you a confirmation, just letting you know that the information is going to get overwritten based in the particular areas that you've specified. So in this case, just planned allocation. We can go ahead and hit apply. And from there, we can go to our allocation side and you will see essentially any of the tasks and assignments that were on that Quicksilver template would then be imported in here. So in this case, it builds upon it. So it's not removing the existing allocation. It will be just adding on the tasks and resources and those assignments directly on here. So it's going to be essentially merging the two. As well as you'll see some similar capabilities with attributes where it's going to bring over the attribute information, overwrite the schedule and milestones. So you will have the options to kind of work with your templates to update your existing project information based off of any of your templated projects. Okay, so I'm going to go back. And one thing I just want to reiterate is when you're working with your template projects, you can view them, any of them that you have access to, just by hitting this new filter icon in the project management area. Go into template, and then It will be based off your existing filtering as well, but I can say maybe remove this filter. You can see all my template projects. And then if you want to make any updates to those templates, you can do so just like you'd be working with any other project. Okay, so there's a couple more options I want to discuss, and this is more on the administrative side of things when it comes to your templates. Very powerful functionality, and there is risk for users going in there and essentially saying, I'm going to import from a template that they shouldn't have, or it's giving them too much rights. So there will be specific options within the user's roles to govern the ability to A, create templates within Tempus, as well as B, be able to apply them to your projects and import from them. So I'm going to head here to the home page once more and then navigate to admin settings. And then from here, I'm going to go to role management, and we'll cover very briefly the two roles that you will have access to. And the first one is going to be on the global role side of things, and that's going to be called create template. So I'm going to go scroll to the bottom here, and then we'll find that given permission right here. So we have the ability to create template, and that's just going to be giving the user the ability to essentially say, I want to use this project as a template and then actually create it. So it's just making new templates within the system. What we currently recommend is that this is an administrative activity, and administrators should have access to do so. So we've specified the administrator global role the access to be able to create those templates, and our out-of-the-box regular user does not. You can update any of your existing custom global roles to have that permission if you think they should be able to do that sort of activity. Additionally, we've added one more rule within project rules, and this is the ability to apply templates to your projects. So they will have to have access to that project, as well as have applied template access to A, the project that they're looking to update, as well as B, the template that they're working with. So if we scroll down here once more, we will see, if we scroll over, right there, the applied template role right here. And we have given the ability for the manager resource role or project role, excuse me, out of the box to have the ability to do so. And then we have not given that the applied template access to your editor or viewers within Tempus. And then the last option I want to cover on the template side of things is you do have the ability to import this information via an Excel import. So we have added one more additional column within the Excel import called import template, which will essentially allow you to create that project as a template project. This is an optional field within the Excel import. So when you download the template, it will be there. You can always remove it. It is not required by any means. So if you have your existing import files and you choose not to update them and not bring in that information, that's completely fine. If it is not there, it's going to assume it's false and treat it as a regular project or update your existing projects. So just one more option within there. If you want to import these templated projects through Excel, you can do so by adding that optional column in there and just setting that to true. Okay, perfect. So that covers kind of the templates and mostly on the project management side. We're going to be navigating there as well, but this is going to be going into a couple different areas of Tempus. But the next key piece of functionality that we've added within here is recommendations. So we built out a recommendation engine within some of the core screens of Tempus, being the resource replace screen, the bulk project allocation placard resource replace screen, as well as the resource request screen. And this is going to allow you to get some additional insight based off of core pieces of information within Tempus, and allow you to and give you recommendations on who may be a good fit for those particular, if you're looking to replace or reassign the allocation of that given resource. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to project management, and I'm just going to open up one of my projects once more. And to make sure it's a good one, I'm going to reapply that filter that I had on previously. There we go. And I'm going to open up, in this case, Omega Phase 14 and head to the allocations area. From here, I'll check it out. And like you've done probably in the past with a lot of your assignments, you can then go in here and do the resource replace options. So I'm going to select on Julia here, and I'm going to go ahead and select on resource replace. So So far, very similar to what we've seen in the past, but what you will notice now is we do have this recommendations option. So it's going to be disabled by default, but if you choose and want to see kind of what resources the system may recommend, we can go ahead and select on the recommendations, and then it's just going to do take a couple seconds to evaluate your resources and then show you who may be a good fit within here. So we'll just give this a second to go through here, and based off of that, and I do have a filter for my resources. Based off of the filters that I have applied, this is kind of the recommendation of the resources that it's going to give me. So we are basing our recommendations based off of 3 core aspects within Tempus. First is going to be an availability match. Next, we have an attributes match. And then finally, we have a skill match. So we'll go through what each one of those means here in just a minute. But those are going to be the key factors that we're going to be evaluating our recommendations based off of. And then you'll also see kind of an overall score over here on the left. And that's how we're going to be essentially storing the resources when they are displayed. So up here at the top, we're going to have our most recommended resource. Down at the bottom, we're going to have our least recommended resources based off those 3 different categories. So in this case, the best match that we have based off of the recommendations as well as the filtering that I have applied is 34%, which is for Trevor Harris. So next question would be kind of how is that 34% being based off of? And like I was saying, it's based off those core 3 pieces: availability percentage, attribute match, as well as skill match. So the availability percentage is going to be doing a comparison of the availability between the resources. So it's going to take the essentially hours that are being requested based off of however it's essentially being displayed. I'll just use calendar month in this case. It's going to be taking the availability of the asking amount of allocation, in this case in July 2020. Inevitably, it does go down to the daily level, but it's essentially going to say, does it have 120 hours to essentially fulfill of availability in this month to take on those this activity? If no, it's going to evaluate that, and it's essentially doing that comparison for all of the given months that the assignment is active for. Next, we'll do the attributes match. So this is going to be matching particular values of your attribution based off of something that is defined administratively. So what we'll cover here in a bit is how to set up those particular attributes that you want to look for and you want to compare off of. But essentially, as an administrator, you'll be able to define, say, I care most about these particular attributes. Maybe it's the position that they belong to. Maybe it's the particular department they're in. Whatever you're kind of designating as a high importance and something that should be evaluated, you'll be able to select those attributes to be considered, and then that will come play into an attributes match. From there, it's going to compare, does this value for this resource match what the resource that is currently assigned to that particular assignment? And if it does, it's going to consider that as a match, and if it doesn't, it's going to work against that particular percentage that we're displaying. And then lastly, we have the same kind of concept, but on the skill side of things. So we have our skill match, which is going to be doing the same thing. However, it's going to take into account all your skill information within Tempus. So it's going to be evaluating the skills that are assigned to the resource that is being requested and the resource that may be able to take on that assignment, and then giving you a percentage based off of the match of those skills. So as you can see down below, if we're looking at Trevor, which is actually our highest matching resource, we can say that he does not have the availability to potentially take on some of that activity, but we do have a kind of medium attributes match, but a high skill match. And so if you're kind of prioritizing a higher skill match, you can say this may be a good fit, and we can replace the hours, and you have to make some adjustments elsewhere to make sure that Trevor has the availability. But you can kind of read it like that, where you're seeing the different areas, you're determining the percentages, and then you can kind of determine if it's a good fit and then make those adjustments accordingly. Okay, so that's going to be available here within the resource replace screen, but it's also available in other areas of Tempus as well. So if I go over here and I head over to bulk project allocation flat grid, if I select on, let's say, this option here, and I want to do my resource replace advanced, you'll also see that recommendations option available within here. And then lastly, this will also be available on your resource requests. So if we head to resource requests, I open up and let me add a filter just to show my pending requests. And there we go. I can open up one of my pending requests, and we'll see it down below as well, and we can get recommendations on the screen. So very cool way to kind of get a little bit more insight and have something generated through the system to allow you to get some information and insight on who may work best without having to do the analytics and go, okay, who's the seal of this, and apply complex filtering to get that information. Just allow the system to kind of give you that insight for you. The one last thing I do want to mention is just, again, on the administrative side, if you're trying to manage this information, if we head here to admin settings and then into general settings, you will see that we've added one more tab within here called recommendation, which is going to be where you can kind of specify that skill match area. So right now, if you're looking to determine what kind of attributes you want to determine the attribute match based off of, you can do so in this area, and you can select the attributes. So in this case, I've selected department, employment basis, and position role as kind of the attributes that I want to fixate on to essentially calculate the attribute match based off of. You can choose any of the resource attributes within your system, and then you hit save to make sure that those are persistent. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go back to the home page, and then we have some minor, some additional functionality that has been added within resource request. So we're going to go and navigate to a resource request, and these are going to be mostly in those pending resource request screens. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll open up this resource request right here. We can see it down below. And the first option I want to mention is we have added scribe into this particular area. So if a user is looking at a pending resource request, they will see the kind of scribe icon up here in the top, and they can actually make mentions and comments within here that would flow into the project as well. So they will be able to add that additional context if needed, let that go to whoever is kind of subscribed to that particular project, and so they can get notified, they can navigate the scribe, they'll see it in scribe rollup, just so they can have that additional context within there. And then also we've added some a couple options here. Close out of that, and a couple options here to help sort and filter the information down below. So we were requested with some additional filter options within this bottom grid, particularly around what resources are assigned to that given task, as well as what resources are assigned to that given project. So you will see this options area, which one will be where you control your overlay heat map, but it also will be able to designate which resources you want to show. So first, we have just all. So any resource within here, you still have your typical filtering, searching capabilities up here that will be applied, but then you can just determine, okay, I want to say only available resources. This was in previous versions of Tempus as well. However, we've just moved it to this particular area because we've also added the current project. So it's going to show you resources that are assigned to the current project. So in this case, Dave and Cameron are the only resources that I am the manager for that are assigned to this project. And then two, you also have current tasks. So it's going to say if this resource, which resources are going to be or are assigned to the current task. And if we scroll up, we can see that it's on the resource request project and on the generic task. So some quick filter options just to help filter out the grid down below based off of those different criteria. Okay, so I'm going to head back home, and I'm going to go to the resource management side of things, and we'll go over some of the functionality added in there. So to start things out, you can notice that the grid looks a little bit different than it did before. Very similar to what we've gone over on the project management side of things. We've updated the look and feel within here. It should work very similarly to what you saw before, but we've added a couple enhancements within here. First is kind of how you can manage the columns. So just like we saw on the project management side of things, you can move the column ordering based off of just by clicking on them and changing the position of the column header as well. And then we've also added that horizontal scrolling capability, so it's not So you will have more space within the screen, and so giving you the ability to add more attributes within here and effectively see them. Outside of that, we've also added that same group by functionality. So you can still group by like you currently have seen, but it is restricted to just 5 groupings within here. And so similarly to what we saw on the project management side of things as well, if I open up a resource, we will see if I go to attributes and identity, underneath user identity, we do get the ID of the resource. So you will be able to see the kind of Tempus intrinsic ID that was assigned to it, as well as we've made the updates to selection and multi-selection field within the resource side of things, so you can search based off the values that you'd like to select. Okay, if I head over to the capacity side of things here, we will then see that we have added those date options like we covered very briefly on the beginning of the call. 1 second. So like we covered briefly on the call earlier today, we do have kind of the start date and end date filters within the cross project allocation screen. So these are going to be separate from the capacity start and end date up at the top of the screen. These are going to be essentially dictating the time frame that is being displayed down below. So what we can do is we can go and say, man, make this a little bit better, I'm going to go ahead and work with a different resource. I'm going to work with Larry in this case, one that is assigned to maybe a couple more projects. And so we can then shorten the particular time frame of the cross-project allocation screen to help determine and fixate on a particular time frame that you're looking to work with. Let's say, for example, we want to only see 2023 information. We can go ahead and say, we're going to start this out on January 1st, 2023, and then I'm going to go over here to 2023, the end. So in this case, we can go ahead and apply that filter, and it's going to show us only the projects that he is working on during this given time frame and how much he is assigned, essentially removing what it previously was about 11 years worth of capacity and availability and allocation that was being displayed. Now we're narrowing it down to just that 1 year, that particular time frame that you specified. So this is completely different than the capacity time frame set above. This should be up above, used to dictate the start and end date of that given resource. So when he joined the organization and when he left, where this will be the filter control where you can actually manage what you want to see within the cross-project allocation screen. Additionally, we have also added this kind of quick filter option within here. So if we want to say, oh, let's fixate on the current quarter, we can go ahead and see what that information looks like there. We can focus on the current year, next year, just to quickly help sort through what is being displayed within there. And then lastly, on the resource side of things, if we go back and head to the net availability side of things, you will see that we've added one additional option within here, which is this project count. So this is going to allow you to just get a count of the amount of projects a resource is working on during a given time frame. So if we look at this here and we scroll down through all my groupings, we can see Sean's working on one project throughout the entirety of 2023. And then if we wanted to show a different resource, Sean Johnson down below has 3. And so if we remove this filter, you can kind of get overall counts based off of your different groupings, as well as individual counts, such as Planner here is working on 3 projects in May, and then 2 projects for the remaining of the year. So I'm going to go back to the homepage, and one update that we've made on the BPA flat grid side of things, which is going to be showing some of the ability to kind of show calculations. So within Excel, they have an option where when you highlight and hover over a particular subset of cells, it's going to give you kind of the average, sum, maximum, minimum, which we've added into this grid as well. So within the options, you will have the ability to toggle this, and it's going to be toggled by this show selection calculations. So when enabled, what it's going to do is if we say want to see the information within this group of cells, up here in the top right-hand corner of the screen, it's going to show you kind of those different calculations. So we'll show you the average, the sum, the min, the max, as well as the amount of cells that are hovered during this given time, and show that information within here. And then if you want to change that, all you have to do is hover a different subsection of cells, and it's going to give you that information up in the top right-hand corner. So very easy to work with, pretty intuitive, as well as just make sure that If you are looking to see that option, you just make sure that show selection calculations is enabled within your settings. Okay. So some quick updates on the scribe side of things, which we'll go through is first, I want to mention that we have split up some of the permissions associated with scribe to govern the access a little bit more effectively. So in version 7.2, scribe was governed by one singular permission called access scribe within the global role. We have broken that into two separate permissions now, one giving them access to the scribe roll-up tile itself, and then additionally, a project role that has been added, which is going to give them the ability to see the scribe information for a particular project. So now you can have administrators, maybe you only want administrators access to have scribe rollup, and then you want more your regular users to be able to see the communication at a more so project level. You can do so by splitting up the permissions effectively. Additionally, we've added some options when it comes to tags within scribe. So if we open up a project, and we open up here, and let's say we just go to allocations, we go to scribe. Before, when you go to your add tags option, you would see your tags. And one of the things that we noticed is you could create tags, but you didn't really have ways to manage them effectively outside of that in version 7.2. So you didn't have capabilities to edit your existing ones, as well as more importantly, you couldn't delete tags associated to them. So if typos happened or you accidentally created them and you had a bunch of tags, you didn't really have ways to effectively manage them, which we have added within this view. So if you go to your tags management area where you can add tags to some of your mentions, you can go ahead and you'll see an edit icon to change the name, as well as you'll see a trash can icon to delete said option. Okay, and you also have some options, some additional options to filter by your mentions, by users within these particular screens, as well as filter on that information within the scribe rollup. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and these are going to be some more of the minor updates that we have on general settings side and some of the administrative side, so it'll be relatively quick. But first, I just want to mention that within admin settings, and this is feedback that we've heard consistently when it comes to the default unit. A lot of our clients were looking for the capability to essentially define FTE percentage as a default unit. So we have added that within here. So within the general settings, underneath unit settings, you will now see underneath default unit FTE percentage as an option to be your default unit throughout the system. Additionally, like you saw on the resource management and project management side of things, we have updated the user management to kind of have the very similar look and feel. So same capabilities, same applied filters as the previous user management screen. However, it's just going to have that updated look and feel, as well as the updating kind of groupings and column management style that we saw within those other views. Okay, next moving on to view management. On the BPA flat grid side of things, when you're working with your public views, we can go ahead and create one. You will see that we have added this group by option, which was previously not there. So if you wanted to apply groupings to your BPA flat grid screens and those public views that you create for your users, you now have the capability to do so. Next, moving on to some of the timesheeting side of things, we have updated the auto open and close periods, as well as added an additional option within there. So if we head to timesheet configuration down here, and we scroll down, we have period auto open and close. Previously, this was set to either from 0 to 10 days from when the period would start. So we have increased that limit up to 60. So down below, you can go, you can have a period open 60 days prior to when it would actually start, as well as you can have it close 60 days or up to 60 days after a period would essentially close. So we have increased the limit on both of those options, as well as we've added this reminder days and notification. So this is going to come back to that subscription option that we talked about earlier, where when you are working with your subscriptions, particularly on the not submitted side of things. So let's say a user did not submit it. You want to send a notification based off of when a user did not submit a timesheet. This is going to govern how many days after you want that notification to be sent. So this will allow you to say up to from 10 days prior to up to 60 days after that period would close. Additionally, we've made a couple updates on the timesheet side. So we have made some small updates to the user interface within here, but nothing major. And I think it's particularly just around kind of the way add assignments and assignments look and feel. So if we go to, and let me just retract one of these timesheets. There we go. So add assignment looks a little bit different. It's just the box is a little bit further down, as well as we've changed this to an apply button instead of an add assignment because it could be a little confusing at times where you see two add assignment buttons within the screen. Additionally, we changed the button for the new assignment request. And then lastly, we've made an update to the all timesheets to gravitate towards the current period within this view instead of at the top of the list. So you don't have to search for the current period. It's going to be highlighted and focused on the current period within here. Next, on the roadmap side of things, so if we head to roadmap management, we have added the week granularity within here. So if we open up one of your existing roadmaps, and unfortunately the data is not too great in here, but for this piece of functionality, you will see instead of just month, quarter, year, we have added week. So that one more level of granularity where we can see the given weeks as well as the given days. So if you are looking to get very granular and specific with the planning of these different projects associated to maybe different portfolios or however you're using your roadmaps, you will be able to get down to that weekly level now. Okay, next we are going to head to report management. And within here, we've added a couple new kind of minor enhancements as well. First one is going to be to this view, something a little bit, just a small update to the user interface. And it's right here when it comes to the all in mind. Before these were just showing the text and they didn't really seem like buttons. So we've just updated this to be a little bit more apparent and make it so users know exactly what they're on, if they're showing only their reports or they're showing that they own or all the reports that they have access to. So next option that we have added, which is one of my favorite within the system, is some more ways to easily work with the pivot grid, especially when it comes to your dimensions as well as measures. So previously you have your dimensions area, you have to drill down in here and say, okay, we have our project dimensions, we want to add maybe the project manager. In some cases that may be easy. You go down here, you find your, you go to your project custom fields, and then in some cases this isn't too bad. You have 10 custom fields you can go through, but in this case, as you can see, I have all these attributes within here. So just finding project manager can be a little bit tedious and not that user friendly. So what we have added is some more options to kind of sort, to filter and search for those particular attributes that you're looking to add. So let's say in that same example in 8.0, we're looking for project manager. We want to add it directly into the as one of our dimensions. You will see this kind of search option here. We can just search for project manager. If I can spell, and then we see project manager here, my project dimensions, project custom field right here, and I can just drag that directly into my rows, just like that. So I don't have to go through all the different dimensions and measures within there. You can use the searching capability to help you find it, as well as it kind of gives you that tree structure that'll determine if you have the same attribution defined in multiple places, like we kind of see here with project dimensions and snapshot dimensions. It will tell you which one is associated to make sure that you're bringing in the correct information within the pivot grid. Okay, and then the last option on the reporting side of things, and so I won't save my changes, or I'll just go back here. And this is going to be on the portfolio planner side of things. So within version 7.2, when we introduced fiscal year and the fiscal calendar capabilities, we introduced them to our different report types. So in pivot grid, pivot chart, or our two chart, we had, or pivot grid and pivot chart, we had the fiscal options. So we can report at a fiscal year or fiscal month, fiscal quarter. Any of those options were available. However, we did not add it to the portfolio planner. So due to that, we have also then just added those fiscal capabilities within here. So for portfolio planner, if you want to report based off of the fiscal year, quarter, or month that you have set up within the system, you can absolutely do so now. And you'll see those options down below. And we can just select on fiscal month instead, select our information to bring in here. and then we can select our data series just like you would before, and then you can set it up appropriately based off of the fiscal, your fiscal year or fiscal calendar structure. Okay, so last but not least, some of the API updates, really only one to mention at this point in time, and that is revolving around the advanced rates. And so I believe in 7.2 or 7.1, we introduced the ability to have advanced rates within your resources. So if we go to resource management, we go to our attribute management, go to user identity. You will see our default rate. You have your numeric option, but you also have an advanced rate option where you can have multiple rates being assigned to different years or different time periods actually within Tempus. So through the user interface, pretty straightforward. You can go say from the start of my resource to maybe say a couple months out, he has a rate of 50. And then from the next, maybe for 2024, he's going to have a rate of 100. And then afterwards, he's going to have a rate of 110. And I'll just add 110. So through the user interface, very straightforward. You can apply this information. However, we have just introduced that capability now through the API. So if you're looking to add the advanced rate capabilities and you want to assign multiple rates to your resources via the API, you absolutely have the capability of doing so. Okay, so with that being said, that does cover the new functionality within version 8.0 of Tempus Resource. I'm very happy for everyone who could join today, but I'm going to pass it over to Manny now, who's going to be going over the new Jira import options that will be available.
Good afternoon, everyone. We recognize that many of you rely heavily on Jira for issue tracking, sprint management, epic planning, and some of the Agile techniques. However, one of the challenges that we had in the past, and we identified that during our calls with you, is the process of syncing data between Jira and Tempus. Until now, that process involved you navigating to Tempus data sync using our inbuilt Jira connector and initiating what's more of a data pull from within the Tempus. Now, that process wasn't as seamless as it could have been and could sometimes feel a little complex. So to address that issue, we developed our Tempus plugin for Jira. So think of this plugin almost like a digital bridge between your Jira and Tempus. And this plugin would offer you almost a streamlined interface from within Jira to easily push data from Jira to Tempus. Right. This plugin is going to be available in Jira Marketplace or Atlassian Marketplace. Your admin, Jira admin, would be responsible for downloading, installing, and setting the appropriate permissions. Only certain users that have the permission would be able to utilize this plugin. To configure this plugin, you would need your Tempus URL, your service account API key or Tempus API key, and you would have to choose one of the two data centers where you want this information to reside. The setup or the configuration is pretty simple. So you have an option at project level and resource level. You have different options to sync a project, a sprint, a task, a filter, or an epic. And you can determine what object needs to be created into Tempus as a project. There are advanced options available around adding a prefix or a suffix of the data that is being moved. There is obviously advanced option around conflict resolution. Do you want to overwrite the data? Do you want to merge the data or just create blank project? You have similar settings on the resourcing side as well. Finally, the synchronization options are going to look pretty similar to what you have in Tempus. You will be able to get detailed sync logs. You will be able to run these syncs ad hoc, or you can schedule these syncs in advance. Yeah, and that was a real quick overview of our Jira plugin. Back to you, Sean.
Okay, so again, thank you everybody for joining us today. This was quite a release. We're really happy to bring all these features to market. Remember, customers with premium support, you can upgrade as soon as next week. And please reach out to your customer success manager to schedule your upgrade. A few extra points. Number one, we will be doing separate webinars covering all the details of the Jira plugin, as well as separate webinars covering all the aspects of the Tempus Teams bot. I'd love to show more of it now, but we really are out of time. In fact, during the webinar, as Matt was making changes, I'm getting Tempus bot updates in Teams. It's pretty cool. So thank you again, everyone, for attending. Again, please reach out to your customer success manager to schedule your upgrade. And in the event that you did submit a question, I'm a novice with working through GoToWebinar. Apologies for that. So we'll follow up separately with answers to your questions. And again, thank you everybody for joining.